All right, I'd like to call this June 13th business meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Dr. Campley? Here. Mr. Dorr? Here. Mrs. Evans-Brockett? Here. Mr. Fountain? Mr. Keenan?
Here.
Dr. Kohler?
Here.
Mrs. Mayers?
Here.
Mr. Saylor?
Here.
Ms. White?
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The mission of the Perkiomen Valley School District is to cultivate an inclusive community of learners empowered to grow intellectually, socially, and emotionally. I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. The ayes have it. I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes of May 9th, 2022 and June 6th, 2022. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And against, all opposed, nay. And the ayes have it. Now I'm going to move on to a special presentation, a special recognition presentation. I'll give the floor to Mrs. Mayers.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for coming out this evening as we celebrate some individuals who have opted to retire this year. And we're thrilled to have them, a little jealous, but also really thrilled to have them, and certainly wish you all well. We have a simple gift for you, a gift bag. So Mrs. Mayers is going to read a little description, a brief description about some of your contributions and the time that you've spent in the Perkiomen Valley School District, and then we'll present you with a gift. And then we look forward to taking a picture. Dr. Parr is going to take a picture of each individual, and then we'd like to get a group shot afterwards, okay? All right, so with that, I'll turn it over to Mrs. Mayers.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. First, Sharon Allen. If you could come up, please. Sharon was a special education paraprofessional, Middle School East. Sharon began working in the Perkiomen Valley School District in December of 1994. As an instructional paraprofessional, Sharon cared about her students and was always willing to help out in any way that she was needed. Sharon welcomed students as they entered the building and had a smile for everyone. She is thoughtful, caring, and conscientious, and her pleasant attitude will be missed. Thank you so much. Wendy Elser, art teacher at the high school. Wendy started in the Perkiomen Valley High School in 1993. Together with those in her department, she worked tirelessly to elevate the art program. Clay is Wendy's specialty, and the world of 3 dimensions has continued to grow and mature under her guidance. Wendy assisted in developing curriculum for the clay courses as well as for art minor, and more recently, art explorations. As one of the pillars of the art department, she's helped to oversee nearly 30 high school art shows, 20 to 25 district art shows, countless shows outside of the walls of the school at places like Montgomery County Community College and the Women's Club of Collegeville. 5 art and food truck festivals and nearly 45 First Friday guest speakers, which is a program developed to bring those in art careers into the high school to speak to students. Wendy also served as a yearbook coordinator, where she earned recognition for her tireless efforts and organizational skills. Wendy, you will be missed, but there is no doubt your legacy will live on in the PV Art program. Thank you so much. Sandra Gould, special education paraprofessional at Schwenksville. No? Hello. Sandy's journey at PV began after many years in higher education and corporate America, where she worked as a receptionist, head secretary, news researcher, community outreach manager, GED instructor, and teacher. Sandra was hired at PV in 2013 to support students who received Title I and Project Silver services. After about a year, Sandy was offered a full-time position as a special education paraprofessional. In 2018, Sandra earned her elementary education certification from Cabrini University and has served as a paraprofessional, substitute, and stepped in for stretches of time to teach students attending the Viking Academy. We wish Sandy all the best in her retirement and thank her for all that she has done to support the students, staff, and school community. Thank you so much. Kathy Malchitsky, instructional paraprofessional at the library in Evergreen Elementary. Kathy is a Perkiomen Valley graduate, was hired in 1991 as an instructional paraprofessional at North Elementary School. Upon the closure of North Elementary, Kathy made Evergreen Elementary her new home. She served as an instructional paraprofessional, and after 10 years in kindergarten, she moved to her current position as a library assistant. Kathy is always ready to roll up her sleeves and jump in to help in any situation. Her love for the students is apparent in her daily interactions with them. Kathy also played an integral role in PVSPAA, Support Staff Union, supporting her fellow members. Over the years, Kathy has had a positive impact on many students, parents, and staff. Thank you so much. Robin Myron, music teacher at Evergreen Elementary. Robin was hired in 2000 as the music teacher at Evergreen Elementary School. Prior to coming to PV, Robin taught in Iowa and Indiana. The students and staff have been very fortunate for the past 21 years that Evergreen has been the only home in PV for Robin. She has served as building union representative, assisted the 5th grade solar car club, and has participated on various building and district level committees. She has facilitated many wonderful chorus concerts over the years. Some of the highlights of Robin's career at Evergreen include winning the B101 Christmas Choir competition and performing with the Philly Pops. Robin has made wonderful connections with students, staff, and families over the years and has found exciting and innovative ways to engage students to enhance their love of music. She has a terrific sense of humor and is willing to lend a helping hand. Robin looks forward to spending time with her grandchildren, crafting, and traveling in her retirement. We wish you the very best. Thank you so much. Mark Stippa, house principal in high school. Mark started in the Perkiomen Valley School District in the fall of 1986 and is retiring with 35 years of service. Mark's contributions over the years have been invaluable. He served as a health and PE teacher, an assistant principal, a house principal, and a class sponsor. He also coached football and wrestling and managed the high school weight room. Mark served as an official for basketball games and track meets. He attended countless events, chaperoned dances and proms, and was an integral part of student activities such as the Mr. PV contest and lip sync concert, and also fundraisers such as car washes and faculty follies. Mark had a huge impact on those he worked with, always ready with a smile, a helping hand, and a joke. None of that, however, compares to the impact he had on students. He fostered strong relationships and offered support. Mark empowered students and gave them a voice. He will truly be missed. Thank you so much. We'll take a 5-minute recess to take a picture and then we'll reconvene. Thank you.
Yeah, no. All right, we're ready to get going again. We'll move on to comments on any topic. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak? Seeing none. Oh, I apologize. We do have one from.
Dennis Strong.
Okay. One more time.
Dennis Strong.
Dennis Strong on Zoom.
Hey, everybody hear me?
Yes. Mr. Strong, give us 1 second. You have the timer? Perfect. Go ahead. If you could just say where you're from, and then you can start. Thank you so much.
Dennis Strong, Lower Frederick Township. Yeah, I missed everything, and just where I came from growing up. When I graduated and before I moved here in the last 3 years, there's 57 languages taught in my school district in my high school right now. We talk about equity, we talk about inclusion, and what I really want to talk about is bullying. You know, teaching the kids your self-worth and being who you are and being able to express who you are and just being who you are, basically, you know. I heard a lot of comments through people in middle school where my daughter's about to enter about bullying and nothing really being done with it. So I challenged the school board, I challenged the district to come up with a protocol that deals with bullying, step process that, you know, number one, the parent contacts principal, supervisor, counselor, whoever, and then that goes to a next step, to another step, to another step, and kind of resolve the issue. In the midst of everything going on today, you know, with, you know, I hate to bring it up with the mass shootings and things like that, we always focus in our mission statement is that social and emotional well-being. So just to make sure that everybody's feeling equal, everybody's feeling accepted and where they are, and that bullying protocol comes from somewhere. A lot of people have commented that it is just being swept under the rug and not really being taken care of. So I'd really like to challenge the district and the board to set a standard of a step process of bullying. And I yield my time.
Thank you very much.
That's it.
All right. Here. Okay. Seeing no other comments, we'll move on to reports and presentations. Last week there was a presentation on safe schools. Last week also our student liaison report was given by Mr. Seibel and Mr. Schaefer. I would like to call up Mr. Seibel and Mr. Schaefer to receive a certificate. This is their last meeting of the year to recognize their time and service to the school board.
Oh, wow.
This is for you, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time. And this is also for you. And I would say thank you for your time.
Thank
but
you.
You're still doing it.
I got more time.
Rock and roll.
More time on
Guys,
my
thank you
clock.
so much.
Thank you.
Do you find gentlemen have any last words to give?
I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity. It was fun being on the board this year, and I'm excited to see Matt continue on doing it next year.
We'll see you next year. That's all I got.
Do we know who the second rep is, or are we allowed to say that out?
You gonna say her name?
It's Arshia.
Arshia Shabria, right?
Yes.
There you go. Arshia, if you're watching at home, we'll see you next year.
Great. I have nothing to add on to my president's report. Dr. Russell?
Thank you, Mr. Saylor. I have 2 points that I'd like to follow up on. The first is fairly brief. Last week, I spoke about the health and safety transition plan that we currently have in place and recommended to our board that at this point in time, based upon what we know, we would roll it over into the fall. I have since learned that the state is planning to change the template a little bit, and Montgomery County Office of Public Health also plans to update its guidance. So my recommendation would be to wait on that until August, which is what most school districts are doing at this point. So more to come on the health and safety plan for next year. We are still obligated to have one in place based on the ESSER funding we receive. The second point that I wanted to follow up on was really around the discussion regarding committees. And one of the requests last week was for a visual. Can you help us to visualize what a committee of the whole structure might look like as we move through an agenda? So we created a draft agenda, and taking some of the feedback from last week, in addition to Finance Committee of the Whole, which is something the board is a little bit more used to in the past, Dr. Kolar recommended consideration for an Education Committee of the Whole. There are other districts around us that operate their work session as a series of committees of the whole. That's when all of their committees do that legwork that we sometimes refer to and present to the board what ultimately could very well end up on the agenda, or maybe not, but that's when they hold those conversations. So we would, if we were to move in this direction, be shifting to something similar. So here's an example draft agenda for a work session and what it might look like. And the recommendation is to keep certainly some of the opening items that we're used to seeing, the reports. The reports used to actually happen in the business meeting. And a couple of years ago, it was suggested that they shift into the work session because sometimes there's information that influences the board on actions that are upcoming or requested of them. Then we would continue to develop the consent agenda and have, instead of education updates from Mrs. Smith, she would present her committee agenda, the Education Committee, and we could engage the public for a period of time. In this section, once that committee presentation had concluded, there would be the presence of those standard operating items, if you will. There's always an enrollment report. Sometimes there are those standard yearly approvals, VHS, for example. They would continue. Then we would move into our finance section, the business section, excuse me, and instead of that finance update, Mr. Weaver would too facilitate a committee conversation with an agenda similar to the ones that he leads right now. There would also be those standard operating items in those sections. From the committee conversations for both education and finance, the board and the individuals leading the committees, in this case, Mrs. Smith and Mr. Weaver respectively, would make recommendations for what should appear on the business agenda the following week. And there would also be opportunity, I would recommend, afforded to individuals who might be here in the public. Payment of bills would exist. Again, there's very little that's done with that. It's a recognized item during the work session. It's acted on during the business meeting when we have the data. Personnel, whether it's professional or support, is typically the series of items that ends up on the consent agenda. I would recommend to the board to continue with policy committee as a committee and an update be incorporated in section 9 of the agenda. I think, in my experience, this committee work can be really challenging. It may be difficult for the group at large to move through policies. It may not. Sometimes a smaller group can be more productive. My recommendation would be to consider keeping policy committee and providing an update during the work session, by either the board president or myself. There are also those standard items that sometimes appear in governance, second readings when policies move forward, and other times items maybe from PSBA, other obligations on the part of the board, and then finally section 10. So the purpose of laying out this draft agenda was to try and give you a sense of what things could look like if the board were to consider both of those committees moving to a committee of the whole, or all three. You may decide as a board you would like to operate policy committee as a committee of the whole, or leave it as updates. But this is what that flow could look like. There are districts around us that operate this way. I can share some of those agendas if you're interested. Nobody does it, there aren't two districts that I found that do it exactly the same or run those work sessions in exactly the same manner. There are similarities, but they're not exactly the same. However, it gives you a sense of, again, the flow of their agendas when they consider committee presentations and committee conversations during their work session. And with that, I certainly will open it up to questions or comments.
Oh, just real quick, Mrs. Weiner, Mr. Fallon was able to log in. Dr. Kolar?
Yeah, I just wanted to discuss a little bit about the community participation, because I know that was a concern that was brought up if we move to committees of the whole. So I like this format. In terms of community participation, how would we intend that to work? Like, I don't want people to feel like they're limited to 3 minutes within these sections. Can it be more of a back and forth since it is a committee part of the agenda? Because I just don't want that to be lost.
Yeah, we talked about that last week. We asked Mr. Subers, there's no legality to saying that anyone needs 3 minutes. We could allocate, for instance, we'll allocate 45 minutes for education, and you could have an open flow of back and forth dialogue, and then, if that time is not needed, then you just move on to the next subject. But we can allocate time for each committee based on how many people are showing up and want to participate in that meeting.
Yeah, I remember we talked about that, but I guess my concern is that it be a little bit more of a back and forth, not just you get your minute to talk or however it is, but like in committee meetings, there's really not like you stand up and formally speak. It's a discussion. So if we can still do that and keep that part of it, I think that would be more receptive,
Yeah, we want to keep it free flowing. It's very similar to the committee meetings that happen now. We don't want a time limit to you only get one time to talk for 3 minutes, because there's a back and forth. Dr. Campley.
I think a big thing that we should be considering is that could open the door to it being extremely long meetings. So I think when we talked last week, we also mentioned that there could be opportunities where certain things, if we know that it's a more in-depth conversation, it seems that it's going to go on because we have a lot of people that show up that want to speak about it. Mm-hmm. At that point, I think maybe there needs to be a way or some sort of procedure where we can pause it and bring it to the open committee meeting. Dr. Russell, I don't know, like you had mentioned to us in your memo about maybe it would be, I think you said the third Tuesday of every month. I'm just wondering, maybe instead of it maybe we do it, have 2 dates blocked on the calendar. If we don't need the second date, fine. But just so that there is plenty of opportunity, because that is a big concern with the community, is that this is going to stifle their opportunity to come and talk, and, because the meetings go long when it's on a Monday night. So if we found something was running long, we could then move it to that placeholder spot. And if we don't need that placeholder spot, then we could just cancel. But I'm just nervous about only having 1 meeting a month designated to, special topics.
Sure.
So I would agree that our community is very used to being involved, more so probably on education, less so on some of our other committees. And I think the comment section, to your points, Dr. Kolar, and how we would organize those is something we could shape as we were to explore this. But I would agree, we would want the committee conversations to be interactive and open dialogue. That would be a nice way to transition from what our community is used to and what administration actually appreciates. The other point about the third Tuesdays, I was thinking about that, and we might even consider strategically planning certain committees. For example, the board considers a resolution in January. We may want to use that third Tuesday in November or December to have a finance committee that's a part of the community in the event others would want to come out. There are things that happen on the based on the instructional calendar under Mrs. Smith's leadership. So we may want to schedule them a quarter of the way through the year, halfway through the year. We may want to be strategic and methodical about that to make sure that we are affording people those voices that we've appreciated for a very long time. This organization, if we were to move in this direction, is going to force administration to be more succinct but comprehensive in some of those committee agendas and what we present and how long we might spend on them. So that's going to be both an art and a science, and we want to be respectful of the voices that might want to participate. So I agree that that third Tuesday would be something we would want to make sure we capitalize on if we designate it that way.
Well, and I'm thinking maybe even having another date because what happens is, I mean, we tried it with wellness. When we were doing the symposium, it came down to what dates are still left open on the calendar. So I'd rather have us block off more time and not end up using it than to be stuck in a situation where there's a couple issues that come to light, and maybe there's something in finance that we need to delve deeper on, and education, and we only have that one Tuesday for an hour and a half to do that, and we kind of need a backup plan, and then it's scrambling as to when can we get that other time in on the calendar. So if we could meet, that's why I'm thinking maybe if there was 2 nights a month, and one is just a backup night, if we don't use it, I'm nervous that we're gonna run out of time.
So you're thinking that if we don't get through everything in a comprehensive manner on a Monday night in a work session, then we would go to that Tuesday previously scheduled meeting. If we don't need it because we do get through, then we wouldn't need it. We would cancel it. Okay? Yeah, I appreciate that.
Mr. Dorr?
Is policy the only committee you would suggest keeping separate? So all the other two, education and finance?
Yes, I really appreciate the ideas of education and finance being committees of the whole. I think right now that would benefit our entire board to be a part of these conversations. Personally, I just find policy to sometimes be work that is just more productive when the group is a little bit smaller. Not necessarily 3 people small, but a committee structure. Again, I'm open to conversation with the board on that. Not everybody enjoys or engages with policy like they might with education and finance. However, I recognize how extremely important it is. That's one of the major goals and responsibilities on the part of the board. Yes, so personally, my recommendation to the board would be keep policy as a committee and provide updates, provide an overview or a summary. Right now, we don't do that. We expect everybody to read the notes. We could go into a brief explanation similar to what's happening with Mrs. Smith and Mr. Weaver currently.
I'd also like to suggest that we can streamline the agenda by using the model that the IU and the JOC use, where we don't have to read every single motion, especially if we're having a presentation ahead of time where it's going to be talking about all of the stuff that you're going to be asking us to vote on, that you can just say, are there any questions on any of the motions under the education? And then at the next meeting, it's just, I'm looking for approval for all motions under the education agenda rather than reading each one separately.
Anybody else? Okay. Do you have any additional?
So if I may, just Mr. Saylor, just to bring closure to the conversation, what administration can do next is consider those strategic dates that we might recommend to the board. If we keep working on this draft and think about during the course of the year, when would it make sense for Mrs. Smith to have an education committee meeting or Mr. Weaver to have a finance committee meeting? We can look at that and we can continue to build this draft and this proposal, and we can continue to have conversation about it. So we'll bring that back to you. Thank you.
And any board members have any other district or committee reports? I assume not, since we did that last week and nothing new has happened. Seeing none, before we get to the consent agenda, I'm just going to suspend policy 006.1 since Mr. Fountain is on Zoom. That way we don't have to do a roll call vote for every motion. I am looking for a motion to approve the consent agenda developed on June 6, 2022. Is there a second? Second. There's a second. Any discussion? Yes.
Mr. Suber, I have to abstain from 806 because my son is being hired for the summer. So how do we need to remove that from consent?
Yeah, we would remove it from consent.
Yeah.
So it would be an amended motion to approve the consent agenda with the exception of, I'm sorry, again,
806.
806.
All right, so we have a motion to the consent agenda with the exception of removing 8.06. Do I have a motion for that? So moved, and there's a second as well. Any other discussions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Against or opposed, say no. And the ayes have it. Don, I've asked, just because you're on Zoom, just to get a little bit easier to have Mr. Dorr read your section. Is that okay with you?
We still have to do consent.
We just did it.
808.
806.
806?
That's not on consent anymore.
Oh, okay, we'll do it separately. It's fine.
Yeah, when we get, yeah.
Okay.
I got the thumbs up from Don, and so Mr. Dorr, if you could do the education section.
No problem.
Thanks.
Section 4.01, education update. Mrs. Smith?
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to provide you a short update on where we are with the comprehensive plan as we're approaching some of our deadlines with PDE. So the state created a new portal this year, or our turn through this phase in doing the comprehensive plan, and it's broken into 3 stages: a ready, a set, and a go stage. So this slide just shares with you the components that are part of that ready stage: developing that stakeholder group, the steering committee, creating our profile really about what is it, demographics about PV, what are some of the academics and the highlights that we want to note, our mission and vision, and our values. So we, as we are with the pandemic and where we are in terms of when our last comprehensive plan, this is really not as full-blown of a review as we did the last time we went through the comprehensive plan. So many of the items that you will see we are recommending that they continue. So our mission and vision statement and our tagline, we're not recommending at this time any changes to that. We still feel that this represents the direction that we would like to go in. We also had developed educational values a few years ago. We went through this, and again, we felt that these 3 areas of future readiness, safe and supportive schools, and partnerships still reflected, again, where we wanted to spend our work. And we had developed at that time the We Believe statements. And this particular portal, where we're planning with the state here, asks us to look at each of these values from the perspective of a student, a staff, administration, parents, and community, and how do they contribute to each of these values. Then it moves into the set stage. This is really what I'll call the meat of the looking at the comprehensive plan, and it's a very extensive needs assessment that asks us to look at the 5 pieces that you can see there, and then to develop what we believe are the strengths and challenges of the district. So on the next slide, I just talk a little bit about looking at that Future Ready PA Index, which really has 3 main areas to it: state assessment measures, on-track measures, and college and career readiness. And I just gave you a little snapshot of what that might look like on the right, where it will show us for a particular grade level and a particular building our percentage of students proficient or advanced compared to the statewide average. Really, a lot of this part of our review for the comprehensive plan was done in our January data presentation, because we really looked at our data from all different lenses for that. But the Future Ready PA Index, again, was another source that we could look at. The next slide then talks about other areas that we are required to review are what they call Future Ready PA academics. So that means beyond just the state measures of like the PSSA and Keystone, what other local formative, summative benchmark data do you have? And so you can see we listed several of them there that are on our assessment schedule. So we're asked to look at those and identify strengths and challenges. We're also asked to look at other content areas like career readiness and the career education work standards and collection of evidence, the CTE programs, other humanities like the arts and music, environment and ecology, family consumer science. You can see the others that are listed there. So it is very prescriptive in asking us to look at each of these areas. And then we are also required to look at equity considerations, which again, we really did as part of our January data presentation. There are 4 groups that we have to analyze the data: our English language students, our students with disabilities, our students considered economic disadvantage, and then by race and ethnicity. And then we are also, they have developed a rubric in which we rate ourselves in each of the areas here that are considered conditions for leadership, teaching, and learning. And so we met administratively and also sought some input to look at through that rubric and rate ourselves in each of those areas, which when the plan is completed and we're able to hit the print button, you would certainly see that, how we rated ourselves in those areas. And then the final piece, and we do have drafts prepared. They are in board docs, I believe, of the ready stage and the set stage. This is the go. This is the piece we're still finalizing some of those, and we'll certainly share with the board as soon as it's done. This is actually developing the plan. So now that we've identified what our strengths are and what our challenges are, now it is our responsibility to identify what goals are we going to set out of that. And they really do suggest that you have 2 to 4 priority areas, and then you turn those priorities into an actual SMART goal and develop an action plan that goes with that. You also have to think about the professional development that would be aligned with what those goals are and how you will be communicating with various stakeholders. So we have identified 4 priority areas for us. We still have our 3 focus areas of future readiness, supportive schools, and partnerships, and we're trying to align the priorities or those challenges into each of or one of those 3. So the next 4 areas that I have under future readiness, we have math performance. You know from our January data presentation that we've talked about this as an area of need, particularly in our secondary schools. And I just called out for you in the narrative there some pieces that we would be looking at, which would be obviously trying to increase that proficiency. Looking at, when we look at the standards, one of the areas of need in the standards in the secondary is solving real world and mathematical problems. So spending some focus there. We intend to do a curriculum review next year in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and possibly into the high school courses as well. Looking at resources and really spending time with professionally developing our staff on good instructional practices in the area of math. You also approved the implementation of STAR Math, so that will be coming next year, as well as considering other intervention sources and that MTSS structure to really bring those 3 tiers of intervention in the area of math. The second one is really focusing on our English language learners. You may recall that the board also approved really a program audit and working with the IU on this. So we know that we have increased enrollment of identified or qualifying students for ELD. You also approved increased staffing for us. So we will be looking at our curriculum, our resources, our practices, as well as our compliance with all of the regulations regarding ELD. And then special education, certainly Dr. Boyd and her team have led the special education plan and presented that to you. This really focuses more on the academic achievement of that subgroup of our students and looking at how they have performed compared to their gen ed peers or to some of our other subgroups. And so really focusing on how do we ensure that we are providing access to a rigorous curriculum to all of our identified students and that we have resources that meet their needs. And then really continuing that focus on inclusive practices, which their department has done a nice job on increasing the percentage of students being included in the classrooms. And now how do we continue to move along that and again ensure access to that rigorous curriculum. And then the 4th area that we've identified really falls under safe and supportive schools, and that continues to be student wellness. As you know, we looked at the PACE survey results. We've heard certainly feedback more qualitatively, but looking at that social emotional wellness, mental health, the drugs and alcohol, and really looking at our curriculum again, our review of resources, what programs can we partner with? Dr. Russell certainly brought some of those forth to the board, and how else can we partner with community organizations to really outreach to our community? So we will take those 4 areas and really flush them out more to give you a specific goal and an action plan to accomplish that. And we have to map that out over the course of the next 3 years and create targets for the end of each of those 3 years. We then are also required to submit these 5 state reports, and I believe that this was updated today for you as well, that I believe 4 of them are completed. The professional development plan needs to be tied to those goal settings, so we still have some work to do there, but draft plans are there. Some of them are more of a plan, like the induction plan. If you look at it, it's a little bit larger. It really talks about the program. Some of them are check marking boxes and do you have this in place or not? And some of them, the student services and gifted education, are really just assurances. The state asks you a couple of questions to assure that you are implementing the program. So lastly is really just our timeline. So tonight is a very brief overview for you of what that will look like. We will have that draft plan available to you and posted to our public on our website, available in district office, our school buildings, and the Schwenksville Public Library. It does need to be available for 30-day review by the public as well as by the board. And then we will have the opportunity in August to have at the second board meeting to seek your board approval so we can submit by the end of August. Any questions or comments? Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. 4.02 was the enrollment report done last week. Action was taken on 4.03 last week. 4.04 through 4.10 all on consent, and that ends my section.
Mr. Dorr, business, Ms. White?
Item 5.01 and 5.02 were from last week. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23 are all on consent. Are there any questions?
5.24 is the approval of the school dentist for the 22-23 school year. The motion is to approve the service of Dr. Raji Ganesh for the dental screening of the students in our district in Holy Cross and St. Mary's schools for the 22-23 school year at a cost of $23 per student. And I so move.
Is there a second? Second. There's a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
5.25 is a motion to approve Dr. Wade Brochus, Springford Family Practice, to provide school physician services for the 22-23 school year at a cost of $18 per student in physical examination. Are there any questions? I'm sorry, and I so move.
Is there a second? There's a second, Dr. Campley. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, no. And the ayes have it.
526 is a motion to approve the 22-23 general fund budget in the amount of $120,487,986, and I so move.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
527 is a motion to approve the tax rate for the 22-23 fiscal year beginning July 1st, 22, and that includes 3.545 per $100 assessed valuation of taxable property, and I so move.
Is there a second? I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
528 is a motion to approve the 22 homestead farmstead exclusion resolution as presented by the district solicitor and business administration, and I so move.
Is there a second? There's a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
That ends my section.
Thank you very much. Payment of bills, Ms. Mayers.
Thank you. 601 is on consent. 6.02, ratification of bills and payroll. The motion is to ratify the payment of bills and payroll as per the list submitted for the period ending May 31st, 2022, and to authorize the payment of bills on the check and voucher registers submitted for June, and I so move. Are there any questions?
I need to abstain because I received reimbursement for power packs.
There was a motion, a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Can I just stop the meeting real quick? Ms. Evans-Brockett, is PSBA saying, and my brain's going back. You're saying, so like PSBA said, we could do, for instance, 6.02 and I so move rather than reading all the text, or is that just a work session thing that they're talking about? Got it.
You can do it that way if you choose.
Didn't mean to interrupt, but yeah. So how do they? So for instance, something like this, you would just say, just real quick for 6.02, I'm abstaining, and then you would have to then just vote on 6.02 by itself, and then just vote on the rest. It's a massive time saver. Yeah. Sorry to interrupt.
6.03. The motion is to approve the treasurer's report and financial statements, including the summary of cash and investment accounts as prepared by the administration for the period ending May 31st, 2022, and I so move. Any questions?
Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
That ends my section.
Dr. Kolar, professional personnel.
Section 7, items 7.01 through 7.08 are all on consent. 7.09, there is nothing for this month. 7.10 is a motion to approve a memo of understanding with the Perkiomen Valley Education Association to adjust the co-curricular salary schedule as presented, and I so move.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
7.11 is also on consent, so that concludes the section.
Thank you very much. Support personnel, Dr. Campley. And just a reminder that 8.06 is no longer on consent.
8.01, 2, 3, 4, 5 are all on consent. 8.06, there is a motion to ratify a resignation and release agreement as presented by the solicitor, and I so move. Is that how we do it? No, I'm not doing that right.
No. 8.06 is the motion to approve professional employment.
What one did I read? Oh, I'm sorry, I read the wrong one. My button didn't move. Okay. 8.06, my apologies, the approval of summer support staff. This is a motion to approve the provisional employment of the 2022 summer support staff as listed, pending fulfillment of all statutory requirements. And I so move.
Is
Did I
there a
write
second?
that time?
That's,
Okay.
That's perfect. Do we have a second? We have a second by Dr. Kolar. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it.
And then 8.07 is also on consent, and that ends my section.
Thank you very much. Governance, Mr. Keenan.
Governance, let's see. We have sections 9.01, 9.02, 9.03. All are on consent.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keenan. Open up for comments from the audience. Are there any comments from the audience? Mr. Dennis Strong? Mr. Strong, oh, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sitting here and I'm watching. It used to be crowded before. It's not crowded anymore because of mask or whatnot or whatever, right? And then I flash a picture and I see Don. And Don's he's in a white tank top. I mean, come on, guys. We're supposed to be professional right now. You know what I mean? And I have a school board member that is a graduation speech and almost plagiarizes something. Like, it's just getting out of hand right now. I don't understand what is happening right now. And I'll leave it at that. And to my comment about bullying, I've really challenged you as a school board, and I really challenged the school district to solve or have some kind of protocol for the bullying that's going on in the middle schools. I've heard from very people that are shy, intimidated, being bullied by other people that won't speak out. And, you know, I don't mind speaking out about it, but I challenge you all to really look at the bullying and the undermath of the bullying, what it can do psychologically, emotionally, socially to our children in this school district and in this community, and what happens after that. What we mirror, kids' image. So let's be professional about everything. Let's be together and let's help everybody succeed in a professional way. And I yield my time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Strong. Any other comments? Seeing none, comments from board members. Ms. Evans-Brockett, Dr. Kolar.
I just wanted to again thank Mr. Schaefer and Mr. Seibel for your service. Mr. Schaefer, I'm glad we'll have you back next year, and Mr. Seibel, best of luck with your senior year. And also just wanted to apologize to both of you for any bullying you might have encountered in your role. I think there were some inappropriate comments made by, sadly, adults in our community towards both of you, and I hope moving forward, people remember that you are students and you are volunteering your time, and we very much appreciate your voice at these meetings.
Ms. White? Mr. Dorr? Mr. Keenan? Dr. Campley? Ms. Mayers? Dr. Russell?
I too would like to echo Dr. Kolar's comments and thank you very much for your contributions to the board this year. It's really been a pleasure to work with you. And I regret the negative interactions from all different directions at all different levels this year, and just continue to hope that we can move out of that. Have a great summer, and we'll look forward. I'm sure we'll see you, Christian, in the halls from time to time, and Matt will see you here. Yeah, and that's okay, but thank you again. The other thing I want to mention is that we had graduation Friday night, and it was closer to that traditional ceremony that we're used to, and it was really a nice event. Congratulations to Mrs. Mayers. She had a son graduating. We have a couple others who will have children in the next year or two. So congratulations to them and what comes next, and I appreciate all the work that the administration put into preparing for the ceremony, and whoever controlled the weather did a great job there too. That was really nice. So thank you.
10.03 is our policy and notice on video recording. And with that, a rule adjournment. And just note that the executive board will have an executive session after the business meeting for the purpose of personnel and legal. Have a great summer.